right, hello everybody. It's Daniel D with the What's Wrong with America podcast, and it is Thursday, August 26th, 2021. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you out there are still doing what I'm still doing, which is processing or trying to process what the fuck is going on in Afghanistan and what the hell's going on with our commander-in-chief. I mean, this is incredible. This is one of those things where it's like you can't even. I mean, I do the other podcast I do is a crazy comedy, humor, and satire podcast, and it's like there's no way to do satire of this because it's just that bad. Like you can't even think of a way that it could be worse in terms of Biden and the way he's handled this, his administration. I mean, pulling out the military before you evacuate American citizens who are there as part of our nation-building effort, which, yeah, I admit that was misguided, trying to do the nation-building. We should have entered Afghanistan with much more limited aims. We should never have gone to Iraq. We should have locked down the situation in Afghanistan, which we would have been able to do had we not gone into Iraq. And we should have had a plan to get out of there long ago. I mean, the United States won World War II in 4 years against much fiercer competition than the fucking Taliban. Won World War II in 4 years. And in 20 years, we can't defeat the Taliban? No, we could. I mean, in fact, the military really did win every battle of the Afghanistan conflict. This was a failure on the part of the politicians, plain and simple. And for the Biden administration, here's the thing. If you weren't on Team Blue, which I'm not on Team Blue or Team Red, and I hate people who are because they engage in this dishonest, hyper-partisan, bullshit where they basically just try to justify what they already believe, all the logical fallacies, confirmation bias, special pleading, emotional appeals, all the kind of logical fallacies and cognitive biases, that exist. They employ to prop up their own side and denigrate the other side, right? But if you were not on Team Blue, you noticed, and I'm sure if you were on Team Blue, you noticed and just tried to ignore the fact that Biden's mental competence was clearly an issue. I mean, we knew that during the campaign. Now, the media chose not to make an issue of it. The media chose not to really dig too much into Biden. He really got the most favorable fawning press coverage. Well, I take that back. Obama also got very favorable fawning press coverage. I mean, it's unreal how partisan the American mainstream media has become. But yeah, Biden's clearly, and this was obvious during the campaign, the guy is not as sharp mentally as he was 4 years ago or 8 years ago, right? And he's running for the most important job, President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of the military. You got to have your wits about you for that. You got to be mentally competent for that. And this guy's clearly not. And so this leads me to wonder, one, who's in charge? Who's calling the shots? Because I really doubt it's Joe Biden. The guy is clearly not entirely with it. He's not cognitively up to the challenge of the job. Now, I wouldn't say the past few presidents have been particularly good, but you see the stress of the job, how it ages them. Barack Obama went into office looking like he was 21, and left office looking like he was 71. It's like the stress of the job wears these people down. And so it shows that there's a lot of stress on the president. And Biden, when you're electing a guy who's mentally frail, who's seems to be possibly suffering from early stages dementia, and putting him into a situation where that's the kind of stress you're under, that's the kind of demands on your mental stamina. Because here's the thing, it's like you may be, even if you're an aged person, a senior citizen, 80 years old, you may still have your moments where you're sharp. You may still be able to which Biden isn't always able to do. But you may be able to have a conversation where you're thinking clearly and speaking clearly and all that, but it may be hard for you stamina-wise to be in, say, negotiations for all day, or day after day, to be grappling with complicated issues in a fast-changing situation, that requires stamina, and in the same way that physically, a person who's 70 years old could be in great physical health and could do something that requires exertion, but they wouldn't have the stamina that they had when they were 40 or 20, So mentally, it's the same thing. You get past a certain point, and that becomes an issue. And clearly, it's an issue with Biden. And so I'm wondering who's calling the shots. Because Biden says the buck stops with him, but it doesn't. He's really not taking responsibility for this. And every blunder that he makes, or that his administration makes, it's like they compound it by the next thing they do in response to the debacle that they created, So today, it comes out that one of the genius moves the Biden administration did was provide the Taliban with a list of people we would like to get out of Afghanistan. People, because they're our friends now. I didn't know when they became our allies, but somehow we're now relying on them for security. We're now relying on them to be like, to man the gates, screening people coming into the airport in Kabul, or, that's a really questionable strategy right there. But then we give them a list of the people that we would like to get out of the country, many of them local nationals who worked with us. And why do they want to get out of the country? Because the Taliban want to kill them. So it's like you give the Taliban, here's a list of all the people you want to kill, and we would like to get them out of the country before you can kill them. So here's their names. Here's, that's just beyond the pale, beyond belief. How could they be so stupid? Or what are they really trying to do? Because Biden is pretty dumb at this point. The guy's, I feel kind of actually in some ways bad for him, because he's like, they really need to call senior protective services. There's a senior citizen who's being exploited and mistreated, and embarrassed and all that. And just, he needs to be out of office. He needs to be in a retirement home playing shuffleboard or whatever. But I don't think he's in charge. And I think the people, whoever's his handlers are, have been, this is what I think it is. And I kind of hope I'm wrong, because this is, this would speak to like a level of deception and a level of corruption in the DNC and on Team Blue that is beyond what I thought they were up to. But this is what I think. I think that they wanted Kamala Harris in the White House all along. And she was not a popular candidate in the DNC, or she was the establishment choice, but not among the voters. In the primaries, she didn't do well. And then Tulsi Gabbard demolished her in one of the debates, and it was pretty much over for her, right? But the establishment really wanted her to be president, even though the voters did not. And so, they maneuvered Biden in there, which clearly somebody did, because all his opposition suddenly withdrew and backed him all at once, He had, and the thing is that was just after the South Carolina primary that he won, but he was expected to win that. So it wasn't like a big surprise that he won South Carolina. It's like, it was still really anybody's nomination, it was still up for grabs. But at that moment, the front runners, aside from Biden, all withdrew and drew their support behind him. So it's like, all right, Biden's been anointed from on high in the DNC, the Democratic, or rather undemocratic party, undemocratic in terms of its own primaries and how they're conducted. So anyway, the people that got Biden in were like, Kamala Harris is going to be your vice president, with the plan being Biden, who is clearly not competent, was not going to serve out his full term, and Kamala was going to step in. So here's a woman that the people rejected, and the DNC, the elites, were like, no, she's going to be our candidate. And so we're going to sneak her in as the vice president on a ticket with Joe Biden, who's not going to be able to serve out his term. And at this point, it's like, here's a disaster that I honestly wonder if the behind the scenes handlers didn't orchestrate just to get Biden out of the way to bring Kamala Harris into the presidency. That's what I think is going on here. I don't have any proof of this, of course, so this is just me speculating. But we'll see. We'll see what happens in the days and weeks to come. I would really be surprised if Biden is still president at the end of 2021. You know, I would really be shocked. Let alone if he's still if he completes his entire term. I would be really shocked if he completes his entire term. But I really don't even expect him to be president any longer, you know, by the end of the year. I expect that he'll step down, and I expect Kamala Harris will become the president. And that's what they wanted all along. And so it makes me wonder, with this whole debacle in Afghanistan, is it possible that people advising Biden were really that stupid? Or was this a deliberate mess that they created intending to get their gal, Kamala Harris, into the White House? You know, to get Biden out. It's like, okay, phase 1 is complete. You know, Biden won the primary and Kamala Harris is his nominee. Phase 2 is complete. Biden's now in the White House. Kamala Harris is vice president. Now it's phase 3. Get Biden out of the way. You know, create such a public disaster that his incompetence becomes apparent and he has to step down, and then Kamala Harris takes over. And, you know, at this point in my life, you know, I've seen enough shit. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the elites, you know, are indeed super corrupt, you know, and it would not shock me that they orchestrated a fucking shit show over in Afghanistan that got 12 or 10 of our service members killed, you know, Marines killed, many more injured, as well as, you know, Afghans killed and wounded. That just created this hell for, you know, American citizens trapped in Afghanistan, you know, who are now being told, like, basically, you know, just call us, we'll, you know, or get in touch with us somehow, you know, and we'll try to figure out a way to get you out. But meanwhile, we're going to definitely all American troops out of there by the end of the month. Because we're scared of the Taliban and they're holding our feet to the fire on this one. I don't get it. I don't get why we're allowing the Taliban to call the shots here. Why are they, you know, this third, oh God. And then it's like they were a third-rate military power, and we just armed them with lots of our shit that we left behind and didn't account for, I don't know. I mean, so we give all this weaponry and technology to the Taliban. We give them a list of all the people that they want to kill. And we trust them to be our security, you know, to guard the gates and admit only safe people into the airport. And surprise, surprise, some suicide bombers get through. Like, it just, I don't know. This is the level of stupidity that's beyond even the Bush administration, as bad as they bungled things with Iraq. The Bush administration, that was, I want to say, Bush was naive, and the people around him were satanic, like Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, just evil people, you know, who would do anything for a buck. And they got us into a war with Iraq because it made the people close to them a whole shit ton of money. And I'm sure they made out pretty well themselves too, you know. And I think with this whole thing that with Biden, you got some people behind the scenes, you know, orchestrating all this. Biden doesn't have a clue. He's in over his head. He's incompetent. He's out to lunch. And you got people basically taking advantage of a, you know, mentally incompetent, senile senior citizen, you know, so that they can get the president of their choice, Kamala Harris, into office. I think that's what I'm pretty sure is happening. Because the series of events in Afghanistan is so beyond the pale, so just stupid. No sane, rational human being would choose to do that. You know, and just ordinary people who have less access to, information than the people in the Biden administration can see this and say of each move that they've made, this is a colossal blunder. Why the hell would you do this? Why the hell would you pull the troops out, pull all the military out before you evacuate civilians? That doesn't make any fucking sense. And why would you leave all this military equipment laying around, for the Taliban to find? And why would you trust the Taliban to provide security for you at the airport and man the gates and decide who comes in and who comes out? Why would you give the Taliban a list of all the people that we're trying to get out of there, including people who helped us, and they want to get out because the Taliban's trying to kill them? Why would you give the Taliban that information? I mean, anybody with half a brain knows all those things are just so stupid you wouldn't do them. So my thing is, they're not. This is not the result of somebody's stupidity. This is a result of some kind of corruption. I'm not sure quite what the end game is. I mean, I say the thing about them trying to get Kamala Harris in just because it seems the most plausible, but there may very well be something else. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing with the elite. So we've seen over the last few years. I mean, with Jeffrey Epstein, right? The guy, anybody who sees how he supposedly, with air quotes, committed suicide, knows, no, this was a hit job. This was a conspiracy. Somebody took him out because he knew too much, about some very powerful people. He's connected to like Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, even Donald Trump, right? Like Jeffrey Epstein had friends in high places and he had a lot of dirt on him, and so he got taken out, right? But here, so you see that it's not impossible that there exists at high levels in our society an elite class who are not on the up and up. They're not on the level. They, lie, cheat, and steal, and they conspire together to do it and to distract the masses and pull the wool over everybody's eyes and, basically manipulate things for their own ends, right? I mean, we've seen that, over the past year. Like, there's this whole thing with the lab leak theory, right? That people, for some reason, were so desperate to not allow anybody to go down that rabbit trail, right? That story was squashed. Turns out to be true. Turns out the evidence now suggests that. And it was kind of like, okay, yeah, the evidence suggests that. The media and did a pivot on that and then just kind of buried the story, Nothing else. No follow-up. That it came from, it's a man-made thing that came from a Chinese lab that we helped to fund, Somehow, our health officials and our, the very people that killed that story about the lab leak hypothesis haven't lost any credibility because of it, I mean, it's just, you see how corrupt, how depraved the elites are. And so when I look at a situation like this, the shit going on in Afghanistan, there's no way this is just stupidity or incompetence. This is some kind of some kind of evil afoot. Something's going on. And I don't know, if we'll ever know the whole story. Here we are, 2021, almost 60 years after the Kennedy assassination, and we don't know the whole story about that. We don't know the whole story about the Epstein killing. Suicide. And that was only, a couple of years ago? And somehow just moved on, You would think that would have been a strange thing that people would want no more information about, right? Like this guy has, been running, underage sex slaves with some of the most powerful and influential people on the planet, members of the royal family in Britain, Prince Andrew, former president Bill Clinton, possibly current president Donald Trump, one of the world's richest men, or used to be the richest man. I think he's now in second place, Bill Gates. I mean, you would think people would want to know more about that, but somehow that story just got squashed, and the media, as en masse, just moved right along. Like, we're going to focus on something else now. Nothing to see here. So, I don't know. Will we ever find out what really happened behind the scenes? Probably not. But here it is. I'm going to make this prediction, August 26th, 2021. We'll see if it happens. I mean, I don't know. I have no special information. I'm just watching things as they unfold. I'm going to say, I think Biden's going to resign at some point in the not too distant future, and Kamala Harris is going to be in. And all of a sudden, Biden, all the troubles, all the negative coverage, all the attacks from the media and all that have suddenly, turned on Biden, all that's going to just disappear, and there's going to be this halo around Kamala Harris like there was around Biden during the campaign, and around Obama throughout his entire presidency, So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But right now, I mean, I don't know if Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, made a statement about what he would say, what he would do if he was commander-in-chief, which would be nice if we had a commander-in-chief like that. Another guy I listen to is the retired Special Forces doctor, Mike Simpson, who does a Mind of the Warrior podcast. And he actually did an episode recently on Tuesday about Afghanistan that I recommend you listen to. The podcast is good, and that particular episode is really good. He served in Afghanistan. I did not. I was in Iraq, but not Afghanistan. I've only heard stories about Afghanistan. In fact, one guy that I was in Iraq with, who was also in Afghanistan, told me that as far behind the United States as Iraq is, that's how far behind Iraq Afghanistan is. I was like, I couldn't even imagine that, But anyway, yeah, I would recommend listening to that. I mean, the reality is we don't have a commander-in-chief right now. I mean, Biden's not in control. And I don't know who is, frankly. The military seems lately to be more worried about being woke than about accomplishing its missions. So anyway, we'll see what unfolds in the coming days and weeks. I mean, I hope for the best. I hope that, this attack today, I hope there's nothing else like that. I hope that we're able to get the people out of there, and especially the Americans, that there's nobody left behind, and that, the equipment that the Taliban got a hold of, somehow we're able to recover that or destroy it, I'm not, speaking realistically, I'm not all that hopeful about any of that. I mean, just because of the fact that there really seems to be nobody in charge right now. The commander-in-chief is clearly not fit for office. And like I said, wokeness is this mental illness that seems to have hijacked the officer class in the military for some reason. I'm not sure why. Wokeness is it's basically a cancerous set of ideas. And anyway, I'm disappointed. There in the past, it was kind of like, it's not a surprise when you have college campuses, especially elite liberal arts colleges or Ivy League universities, that are hotbeds of wokeism. People who have been privileged their whole lives and lived in a bubble and really never dealt with reality, and so they can deal in these religious, absolutes, in terms of social justice, and there's, oppressors, and there's the victims, and there's colonizers, and there's the victims, and, just separate everybody and everything into these black and white binary categories of 100% good, 100% bad. I'm not surprised when a college campus, when that happens there. But there are other places and institutions that I wouldn't have expected that to happen. The military being one of them. I'm frankly shocked by some of the ads, some of the statements, military top commanders talking about, Ibram X. Kendi being required reading and trying to understand white rage. And man, sure would be nice if they would put as much effort into trying to understand tactics and strategies on the battlefield, that would be nice, but yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on. So we'll see, I hope and pray that, we get some better leadership soon. Shit, man. I don't know. Biden is somehow just this is like in terms of embarrassments to the U.S., to our credibility abroad, to, the military, all that. I mean, this is right up there with the botched, rescue of the Iran hostages. This is right up there with that. It's like, just, oh my God, how can it get any worse? So hopefully it can't. Hopefully, our country turns a corner. People kind of see what they got when they embrace this fucking wokest bullshit on the left. And, don't go back to Trump, but, go back to somebody who's competent and, a little more in the middle, a little more independent minded. Hopefully Americans will be a little more careful in the future about the questions they ask and the things that they demand of their elected leaders. Although, as George Carlin said, think about how stupid the average person is and then realize that half of them are even stupider than that. And, that's who's voting. So I don't know how optimistic I should be that any of that will happen. But anyway, sorry to be such a downer here, to be so depressing on this, somber occasion, August 26, 2021. We're 5 days away from the absolute deadline, of August 31st that apparently the Taliban has drawn in the sand, and the Biden administration, for whatever reason, is respecting. Even though we're the superpower, we're taking orders from a fucking ragtag bunch of fucking Neanderthals. I don't know why, but anyway, hopefully, I don't know. I see that California's incompetent governor is getting recalled, or likely is going to get recalled. And, I don't know if that's a possibility on the federal level, because, Biden, I'm sure the plan was to have him not complete his term and Kamala Harris to step in, because that's who they wanted in the White House. But if there's a way to just recall that whole fucking administration, including Biden and his worthless vice president, Kamala Harris, that would be great. Replace him with somebody who gives a shit and who knows something about being a commander in chief, who has some balls, and, the buck really will stop with them. Hey, how about a team of Dr. Mike Simpson and Jocko Willink? Well, I don't know. Anyway, all right, well, that's it. I'm going to stop babbling now. It is Thursday, August 26th, 2021. This is Daniel D. with the What's Wrong with America podcast. And God bless America, because we sure need all the help we can get right now. All right, talk to you guys next time.